The tea kettle was still screaming when I found the note. I hadn't even noticed she was gone. Just the kettle, shrieking into the empty kitchen like it was trying to warn me. The window was cracked open. It smelled like rain. Her sandals were by the door. I stared at them for a while. Those cheap foam ones she always said she hated, but never replaced. They were still warm. The note wasn't even folded. Just left there on the counter, wedged under a spoon. Like it was an afterthought. Don't be mad. I'll explain later. No signature. No time. Nothing else. Just that one lazy sentence. But that's the thing. You don't write, "Don't be mad," unless you already know exactly how mad someone's going to be. And you definitely don't leave a note like that if you're planning to come back. I didn't call her. I didn't check the GPS on her phone. I just stood there, clutching the paper like it might grow a second page if I stared hard enough. And then, exactly 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. No name. Just a photo. I opened it, and something inside me cracked. Not snapped. Cracked, slowly, like ice under a boot. No sound. Just the feeling. It was her. Margot. Sitting on a hotel bed. In a dress I'd never seen before. Smiling like she hadn't smiled in years. And next to her him. Shirtless. Grinning. A wine glass in each hand like they were toasting me. And in the background, our wedding photo. Our photo. In the hotel room. On the nightstand. I don't know how it got there. I don't know how he got there. But I do know this. 10 years of love died in that photo. And the worst part? I think she planned it all. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a second. I laid there in the dark, the blue light of my phone screen burning into my face like a branding iron. I kept staring at the photo. Her smile. His arm behind her. That damn hotel bedspread. Maroon with those gold tassels you only see in places that smell like cigarettes and fake lemon cleaner. I zoomed in on the picture until the pixels blurred, like maybe I'd find a clue tucked in the shadows. Maybe a reflection in the mirror. Something. Anything that would make this make sense. But there was nothing. Just her. And him. And our wedding photo in a cheap silver frame, sitting smugly on a nightstand that didn't belong to either of us. At 3:27 a.m. I finally called the number that sent the photo. It didn't ring. It picked up immediately, silent. I waited. A breath. Just one. Then the line clicked off. I sat there for a minute, frozen. I've had panic attacks before. Once in college during finals. Once during a job interview when the boss asked where I saw myself in 5 years and I realized I didn't have an answer. But this was something else. This was like free-falling through a memory. I opened Margot's location tracker. We both had it on. Not for spying, just convenience. Grocery runs. Picking each other up. That kind of thing. Location unavailable. She'd turned it off. That's when it hit me. This wasn't spontaneous. This wasn't a mistake. She had planned every second. The note. The photo, the phone call with no voice, even disabling the tracker. She didn't want to be found. Or worse, she wanted me to try. The next morning, I drove to her studio. I told myself it was just to make sure she was safe. But we both know that's a lie. I wanted to see if any of her things were missing. If this was just a one-night glitch in the system or a full reset of the life we'd built together. The studio door was unlocked. It always squeaked, but this time it groaned like it was warning me not to come in. Her camera bag was gone. A whole shelf of hard drives had been cleared out. The photo calendar we made together every January, our version of a tradition, had been ripped off the wall. All the photos for September were missing. All but one. I found it lying on the floor near the radiator, curled at the edges, like someone stepped on it. It was a picture of us at the lake, 3 years ago. I was sunburned, squinting. She was laughing, a plastic wine cup in her hand. Wearing that ridiculous straw hat she swore made her look like Diane Keaton. It was the last time I remember feeling safe. And on the back of the photo, she'd written something in red marker. Sloppy, like she did it fast. You weren't supposed to follow me. That's when I realized this wasn't about another man. This wasn't even about me. Margot was running from something she believed I couldn't handle. And now I had to decide, do I listen to the warning? Or do I keep going? I think you already know what I chose. I didn't go home after I left the studio. I couldn't. Home wasn't a safe place anymore. It was too full of her. Her handwriting on the whiteboard by the fridge, her coat still hanging in the hall closet, her shampoo in the shower like it was waiting for her head to come back. Every room was an echo of a life I didn't know how to live without her in it, even if she didn't deserve to be there anymore. So I drove. No destination. Just asphalt and static on the radio, and the occasional sound of my own throat tightening. Around sunset, I stopped at a gas station just outside of Elk Ridge. One of those rural ones with a bait shop attached and a bathroom that requires a key attached to a block of wood. I bought a microwave burrito I didn't eat and sat on the hood of my car, just breathing, trying to convince myself this was just a breakdown. A surreal episode in an otherwise stable life. But that lie had no weight anymore. Then I remembered something. Something stupid, really. Margot kept a backup of all her client photos on a cloud drive. Her paranoia folder, she used to call it. She said if a flood or a fire took everything, at least their memories would survive. She'd shown me the login once, years ago, when I was helping her recover a corrupted file. I didn't think she remembered that. Turns out, she didn't. I pulled out my laptop, tethered it to my phone, logged in. The folder was still there, clients_archive_final, all caps, because she thought it looked more professional. Hundreds of subfolders, most named after couples or families or companies. I clicked randomly, half expecting it to be password locked or wiped. But it wasn't. Everything was still there. And then I saw it. A folder with no name. Just an underscore. Buried at the bottom, time-stamped only 3 days ago. I opened it. There were 22 photos. All raw format, untouched, no labels. The first few were of a motel room. Not a hotel, a rundown roadside motel, the kind with peeling blue paint and plastic chairs outside the doors. I recognized the bedspread from the photo I got sent. So this was the place. The next photos were of her. Margot. But not portraits. Not art. Surveillance. In one, she was standing by the vending machine, arms crossed. In another, sitting on the motel bed, staring out the window like she was waiting for something. In the last few, she looked scared. Not dramatic movie scared. Subtle. Quiet. Like someone who heard a sound and is pretending not to. Then came the final photo. It was taken from outside the motel window, through the glass. The shot was crooked, shaky. Margot was in the frame, half-turned, but the focus wasn't on her. It was on a man, standing behind her. Not the same man from the earlier photo. This one was older, clean-shaven, wearing what looked like a uniform shirt, maybe a park ranger or security guard. He had a hand on her back and was leaning in. She wasn't resisting, but she wasn't smiling, either. She looked resigned. There were no more photos after that. I stared at that last image for an hour, trying to convince myself it was a mistake. Maybe a role play? Maybe some experimental art project? But no, Margot wasn't like that. At least, the Margot I thought I knew wasn't. My hands were shaking. I downloaded the whole folder and transferred it to an encrypted USB I had in my glove box. I didn't even know why I was being careful. It just felt like the kind of thing that people get followed over in crime documentaries. The kind of thing that starts with a photo and ends in a shallow grave. I got back in the car, closed my laptop, and just sat there in the dim orange wash of the gas station lights. She had lied. Obviously. But now, it wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't just another man. There was something else. Something way darker. She was running from someone. And whoever it was, they'd already found her once. By the time I got home, it was well past midnight. I hadn't eaten, but hunger felt like something that belonged to a different version of me. One who still believed in morning coffee together and shared laundry baskets. That man was gone. I unlocked the front door slowly, half expecting everything inside to have shifted, as if Margot's absence could physically bend the house. It hadn't. Everything looked the same, but it didn't feel the same. The silence was heavy, like the air itself had secrets. I tossed my keys onto the counter and plugged in the USB drive. The folder opened immediately, its quiet presence now glowing on my monitor like a crime scene. 22 photos, the last one frozen on my screen. Her, him, the motel window. I couldn't look at it again. I opened a new browser tab and started searching. First, I tried reverse image searching the man's face. No results. Then I tried the motel. I zoomed in on one of the photos where the door number was visible, room 7, and behind her, a faded sign, Glenfield Inn, weekly rates. It was a start. I Googled the name. There were only 2 Glenfield Inns in the country. One was in Michigan. One was in Arkansas. Margot had no connections to Arkansas. But Michigan, her cousin lived there. I'd met him twice. A strange guy who sold used arcade machines online and once brought a bearded dragon to Thanksgiving. I clicked on the Michigan Glenfield Inn. Old website. Barely functional. One photo of the front desk with a wall of keys behind it. Definitely the place. I called the front desk number listed at the bottom. It rang 4 times before a woman answered. "Glenfield in," she said, voice tired and smoky. I asked if anyone matching Margot's description had checked in last week. Silence. Then she sighed. "You a cop?" "No," I said. "I'm her husband." Another pause. This one longer. I could hear a TV in the background, some courtroom show playing at low volume. Then she said something I didn't expect. She said you might call. My heart froze. What? Couple days ago. She gave me a 20 and said if anyone called asking about her, to tell him she wasn't here. Said you'd be worried, that you'd probably ask questions. But then she came back the next night, real nervous. Left early in the morning, didn't even grab the key deposit. I asked if she was with anyone. Different guy the second night, the woman said. Big guy, quiet. Looked like he didn't want to be seen. They didn't talk much. She kept glancing at the window. I asked her if she knew the man's name. Nope. Didn't even check in under his name. She booked the room. Paid cash. Didn't leave no ID. But hold on. I heard her shuffle some papers. She dropped this, I think. Or maybe left it on purpose. My blood went cold. She left something? Piece of paper. Has some kind of code on it. Numbers. Letters. Real weird. I didn't throw it out 'cause it looked, I don't know, important. Can you send it to me? Can't scan it. But I can text you a photo. I gave her my number. 10 seconds later, it came through. A napkin, crumpled but flattened. Written in red ink. L01984 TDC/M 03/19B. It didn't mean anything. Not yet. But it wasn't random. Margot didn't do random. Every detail in her life was organized, controlled, down to how she stacked our groceries in order of expiration dates. I thanked the woman and hung up. For a while I just sat there, staring at that code on my phone. It wasn't just a breadcrumb, it was a message. Something meant for me to find. Or someone else. And then, a second message came through from the same number. No text. Just another image. It was a blurry security cam still. Dated 3 days ago. Timestamp, 2:31 a.m. It was Margot. In the parking lot. Walking quickly toward a dark SUV with no plates. Behind her, far in the distance, another figure. Same man from the window. Only this time, he was looking directly at the camera. And I swear to God, he was smiling. I didn't sleep again that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that man's smile frozen on the grainy security cam still. There was something off about it. Not menacing, not even threatening. Just wrong. Like it didn't belong on a human face. Like he was smiling out of place, like someone who laughs before a joke is told. I spent hours staring at that code Margot left behind on the napkin. L01984 TDC/M 03/19B. It felt like something from a library card catalog, or maybe a government form. It didn't fit any system I recognized. I tried feeding it into search engines, forums, even some old Cold War database I found through a Reddit rabbit hole. Nothing. But the TDC part sparked something. I used to work construction years ago. TDC was shorthand for Transmission Distribution Cabinet, basically a protected electrical node. I doubted Margot knew that. But what if it stood for something else? I Googled TDC Michigan, and that's when something clicked. Traverse Data Center. A facility 3 hours north of here, right on the edge of a decommissioned military base. Supposedly repurposed for public sector archiving. But if you click deeper, like I did, you'd find old Reddit threads and weird forums talking about how it was used for something else back in the 80s. Military communications. Civilian records. Maybe even surveillance. Most of the claims were unverified, of course, just the usual internet paranoia stew. But what really made my stomach turn? One of the archived maps of the base showed buildings labeled with grid tags. M03. I checked the image again. Margot's code included that exact marker. That wasn't a coincidence. At this point, logic stopped being my friend. I stopped trying to convince myself this was about an affair. This was something else. Something deeper than betrayal. Something institutional. Hidden. I packed a bag, printed every photo I had, and drove north. 3 hours of gray highway, and my own heartbeat in my ears. By the time I got to Traverse, it was raining. Hard. Sheets of water coming down in fat diagonal lines. The kind that blur your windshield even at full wiper speed. The TDC compound looked abandoned at first glance. Fenced-in perimeter. Rusted signage. A security gate that was half open but didn't seem functional. No cars. No guards. But the closer I got, the clearer it became. It wasn't abandoned. It was just hiding in plain sight. The main entrance was sealed shut, but around the back, there was a freight door slightly ajar. Like someone had pried it open weeks ago and no one had bothered to fix it. I slipped inside. The air was cold. Metallic. It smelled like old batteries and forgotten electricity. Rows of data racks lined the walls, blinking faintly. Still powered. Still active. Somewhere in the distance, I heard a generator humming. It felt like walking into a machine that hadn't realized it was obsolete. I followed the room numbers. Most had long since faded or been painted over, but eventually, I found M03. It wasn't a server room. It was a records chamber. Metal file cabinets, floor to ceiling. Physical documents. Thousands. Dust-covered but sorted. Government seals. Old CIA watermarks. I don't even know how legal it was for this stuff to be here, just unlocked like that. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I opened drawer 19B, the final part of the code. Inside were boxes of microfilm, small folders labeled with initials, and one file right in front, newer than the rest. No dust. A fresh crease down the middle, as if it had been opened recently. Handled. The label? M. L. Walters, Margot's maiden name. My vision tunneled for a second. I sat down on the floor right there and opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a birth certificate. Hers. But not like the one I'd seen years ago when we applied for a passport. This one listed 2 fathers. One crossed out. One stamped in red, restricted. There were forms. Psychological assessments. A line that read, subject exhibits elevated recall, nonlinear dream patterns, potential for encoding. I didn't know what any of it meant. But on the final page, there was a black and white photo clipped to the top. It was Margot, younger, maybe 14, standing in a hallway. With him, the same man from the motel. Still clean-shaven. Still smiling. Only this photo was dated 2006. He hadn't aged a single day. I didn't tell anyone I was going to traverse. Not Margot. Not her family. Not even my best friend, Jared. I wasn't sure who I could trust anymore. After I saw that photo, that piece of paper with Margot's maiden name and the stamped restricted on it, I felt like I'd crossed a line. A line that hadn't existed until then. The past I thought we shared wasn't ours to begin with. And I couldn't help but feel like I was stepping into something I wasn't meant to know. I'd barely slept in 2 days, but I knew I couldn't go back to the city yet. Not until I found out exactly what had been hidden. I kept thinking about that photograph. Margot, just a teenager, barely 14, standing there with that same man. No way was it a coincidence. There was something between them that had been carefully buried. And now, somehow, it was starting to bubble up. The file in front of me seemed like an invitation to the madness I had avoided for years, a door that opened to a world I never knew existed. But in the deepest corner of my gut, I knew I had to go deeper. I couldn't walk out of that room without understanding what was happening. I spent the next few hours carefully sifting through files. Everything felt wrong. Too cold, too clinical, like I wasn't meant to be there. I tried to focus. I had to. But the name M. L. Walters kept circling in my mind. I thought about Margot's family, her history, the things she had told me. Then I thought about what she had never mentioned. I couldn't go back to my apartment. Not after everything. I wasn't even sure if I wanted to go back to her at all, but there was a cold certainty that lingered. If I left that room now, I'd lose whatever thread I had to something much bigger than a mere affair. I didn't know who I was dealing with anymore. At some point, a man entered the records chamber. He looked harmless at first, a lanky guy in a weathered jacket, the kind of man who looks like he's spent too much time near machines. He didn't seem to notice me right away, so I ducked down behind the nearest file cabinet. I watched him, my pulse pounding. He walked to the far corner and started flicking through one of the locked cabinets. I was sweating now. I didn't know why, but I felt like I'd been waiting for him. As if the universe had just decided I'd reached the part of the story where the next piece had to fall into place. I had no choice. I waited until he was engrossed in the files before I approached, moving as silently as I could. He didn't notice me, and by the time he had opened a folder, I was close enough to see the name printed on the page in front of him. M. L. Walters. This was no coincidence. I could feel my stomach twist. Margot's full name. Her history, just like mine, lying here in this abandoned facility. This was no random security guard. This was someone who had direct access to everything. Someone who was part of a system that she and I were clearly never supposed to be part of. I stepped back into the shadows and waited for him to finish. As the minutes ticked by, the unease built. I felt my mind fray, trying to make sense of everything I had seen. What was Margot involved in? Was this something she'd been keeping from me for years? I thought I was prepared for the worst, but nothing could have prepared me for what happened next. The man closed the folder and turned around. For the briefest moment, our eyes met. And then it hit me. The man in the photo. The man who had appeared with Margot at the motel. The same man who had been smiling in that hallway photo from her childhood. This was him. I could feel my pulse race. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. His eyes didn't shift. They didn't narrow. They just watched me, like he already knew who I was, what I was doing. Then, slowly, he smiled. Looking for something? He asked, his voice low but calm. I couldn't answer. Every part of me wanted to run, but my feet were glued to the floor. You should be careful, he said, his voice colder now. Some things, they don't stay buried. People like us, we're not meant to find this. I could hardly breathe, the tension in my chest rising with each word. He didn't wait for me to respond. Without another word, he walked past me, his steps slow and deliberate. I had no choice. I followed. I didn't know how long I followed the man through the dim, echoing hallways of the data center, but the closer I got, the clearer it became. He wasn't just some random employee. He wasn't a guard. He wasn't anyone who should have been here, not with the files he had. The man I'd been tracking. The one who had been in Margot's life all these years, the one who was in every shadowed corner of her past, wasn't just a part of her story. He was the story. His name was Tobias. That was the first thing I learned as he turned a corner ahead of me. Tobias. A name that didn't mean anything until it meant everything. I should have stopped then. Should have turned back. But I couldn't. I had already crossed too many lines. I kept my distance as he entered a small office at the far end of the facility. A low window to the side let in just enough light for me to see the shadow of a man with a clipboard. Tobias exchanged a few words, too quiet for me to hear, and then the door closed. I stood there, breath caught in my throat, fighting the urge to do something reckless. But what could I do? I wasn't a cop. I wasn't anyone of importance. I was just a man who thought he knew his wife. I moved closer to the door, barely breathing, and pressed my ear against it. Inside, I could hear voices, muffled at first, then clearer. Tobias, she's getting closer. A second voice. Does she know everything? Tobias, not yet. But she will. Soon. It's only a matter of time before she understands the implications. She's already seen more than she should have. I froze, heart pounding. Margot, she's getting closer. The voice on the other side continued. She's too curious. It's dangerous. If she starts asking the right questions. Tobias interrupted. She won't. She doesn't have enough to go on. But the code, she's been asking about it. If she cracks it, we may have to act sooner. I didn't need to hear more. I turned and walked away, my mind spinning with everything I'd just overheard. There was no mistaking it anymore. Whatever was happening, whatever Margot was running from, it wasn't just about her. It was bigger. It was dangerous. I made my way out of the building, the rain still falling heavily outside. I felt like I was suffocating in this small town, a town that seemed so normal, so empty. Except now it felt like a trap. I knew what I had to do. I had to get answers from someone who knew more than I did. Someone who could tell me what was really going on. Someone close to Margot. Her family. I called her mother, a woman I hadn't spoken to in over a year. Our relationship was complicated, but I didn't have a choice. I needed answers, and I needed them now. She picked up on the first ring. Clyde. Her voice sounded shocked, but there was something else too, something I couldn't place. What is it? I need to talk to you, I said, my voice cracking more than I'd intended. I need to understand what's been going on with Margot. All of it. There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing on the other end, like she was weighing her words carefully. Clyde, you need to let it go, she finally said, her voice low, almost a whisper. It's not what you think. You don't want to know. I do want to know, I said, the anger creeping in. I need to know. Please. I'm not leaving until you tell me. There was silence for a moment. Then, just as I was about to give up, she spoke again, her voice barely audible. Fine. Come to the house. I'll explain. But you need to be ready. I didn't have to ask what she meant. I had been ready for this for days, for weeks. But the words she said next made the ground beneath me feel even less solid than before. Meet me at 7 o'clock tonight. Don't be late. I drove straight there, my hands gripping the steering wheel, my mind racing through 1,000 different possibilities. Whatever she was about to tell me, I knew it would change everything. But I didn't realize how much until I pulled up to the house. It looked the same. Neatly manicured lawn. The porch light on, flickering slightly. The place where I had spent countless family gatherings, holiday dinners, quiet nights. But as I parked in the driveway and looked up at the windows, something felt off. It wasn't just the silence. It was the absence of something. The kind of absence you only feel when you know something's missing but can't quite place it. Her mother opened the door before I could ring the bell. Her eyes were red, tired. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "You came," she said quietly. "Good." We didn't speak as I followed her inside. She led me into the living room, where she motioned for me to sit. "I didn't want you to find out like this," she said, her voice cracking. "But there's no turning back now. You're already too far in." I didn't answer. I just waited. She sat down across from me, her hands shaking. "Margot, she's not who you think she is. She never was." My heart dropped. I wanted to scream, to shout at her to just tell me what the hell was going on. But I couldn't. I just waited, my stomach twisted in knots, as her mother slowly began to speak. "She's been part of something dangerous, since she was a child. Something that I couldn't protect her from. No one could." The room felt like it was closing in on me. Her words didn't make sense. They couldn't. She was involved in a project, Clyde. A government project. And Tobias. She hesitated, her face paling. He was in charge of it. He's not just someone from her past. He was her past. And he's been coming after her for years. I was frozen, unable to process what she was telling me. I don't understand," I said, my voice shaking. "What project? What are you talking about?" Her mother took a deep breath, and then she told me everything. The truth about Margot's past. About her involvement in experiments I couldn't even begin to comprehend. And about Tobias, the man who wasn't just stalking her, but controlling her. Watching her every move. This wasn't just a marriage falling apart. This wasn't a simple betrayal. This was something bigger. Something much darker. And I was already too far in to turn back. I didn't expect the confrontation to feel like it did. The truth about Margot's past, the experiments, the surveillance, the manipulations, was a nightmare. But there, in that living room, with her mother's words still fresh in my mind, I felt a strange weight lift. It wasn't the burden of knowing that our marriage had been built on lies. It was the weight of the truth, raw and real, finally being brought into the light. The unknown had turned into something tangible, something we could now face together. Later that evening, Margot came home. Her steps were hesitant, like she wasn't sure what kind of welcome she'd get. And truthfully, neither was I. The last few days had been a blur, filled with fear, anger, and confusion. But deep down, I knew I still loved her. That never changed, even when everything else did. She stepped inside, saw me sitting on the couch, and paused. Her eyes searched mine, as though she were reading a story written across my face. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. She knew. "Clyde," she whispered. Her voice cracked. I never wanted you to find out like this." "You should have told me, Margot," I said quietly, the frustration evident in my tone. "All these years, all these secrets. We could have faced it together." "I didn't know how," she admitted. "I didn't know if I could ever tell you about everything. About Tobias. About the project. What they did to me. I thought I could protect you from it." Tears welled in her eyes, and I saw the fear, the shame, everything she had hidden from me for so long. The vulnerability she had never allowed herself to show before. But as I looked at her, all I could see was the woman I had married. The woman who had been with me through the years, through the highs and the lows. Despite everything that had happened, I knew she was still that Margot. The one who laughed with me over coffee. The one who stood by me when life was uncertain. "You don't have to protect me anymore," I said, my voice softer now. "I'm here. We'll figure this out. Together." She took a tentative step toward me, then another, until she was standing in front of me. For a moment, we just stood there, not speaking. And then, she knelt down in front of me, her hands trembling as she reached for mine. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I've been running from this for so long. I didn't know how to stop. But I want to stop now. I want to fix this. If you'll have me." I didn't hesitate. I pulled her into my arms, holding her like I'd never let go. The weight of everything, the secrets, the lies, the betrayal, felt like it was beginning to dissolve. Maybe we couldn't erase everything that had happened, but we could move forward from here. And that was enough. I'll always have you, I said, my voice thick with emotion. No matter what. And for the first time in days, we just sat there, holding each other. No more questions, no more secrets. Just the quiet understanding that whatever happened next, we would face it as a team. The road ahead wasn't going to be easy. We had a lot to work through, a lot of healing to do. But I knew that now, more than ever, we could build something new. A new chapter, free from the darkness that had tried to control us. Margot and I weren't perfect, but we had each other. And sometimes, that's all you need to move forward. As the night grew quieter, we didn't speak much more. But there was peace in the air, a peace that had been absent for far too long. In the end, we found our way back to each other, not in the way we had expected, but in a way that felt more real than anything we had ever known. And as the rain outside finally stopped, I realized something. Sometimes, the hardest battles bring you closer to the people you love, even if it takes everything you've got to fight through the storm. The storm had passed, and we were going to be okay.